So on that advice, I already quickly came to the conclusion that I'm not rich enough to fight a billion-dollar lawsuit with a bank. I just don't have that kind of resources. So then I go back to the bank and I talk about a few other things that I won't get into details in this video. But at the meeting tells me, you know, if you're not happy with the way things are going, you can contact the office of the president. Well, actually, that's the correct thing for him to say. He advised me that this process is in place. And I took note of it and started to investigate. Well, let me tell you about the whole process of the office of the president. And I'll tell you how useful it is. And I got it right here, just a moment. This is more useful than going through the office of the president. And I'm telling you, that's a fact in my case. I'm not saying everybody's case, but in my case. Now, I would also suggest that this is more useful than going through the Scotia Bank Ombudsman. And I'll tell you why. So, the banks have pretty much three, the Scotia Bank anyway, I'm not talking about the other banks. The Scotia Bank has three processes in place. The first one is, if you have an issue, go to your branch manager and talk about it. So you're missing $50, you give somebody an ash tune and you complain, they say, no problem, we give you $50 back. Everybody's happy. Now, as in my case, if you have a situation where it's tens of thousands of dollars, well, that's likely way above the pay grade of the branch manager. So they then tell you to write to the office of the president. Well, in the beginning, it sounds very official. Office of the president, the head honcho, the big man, whoever it is at the top. You know, you think it's really important. Well, let me tell you, it's bullcrap. Why do I say that? Well, the office of the president is nothing more than a fancy name for an office floor. And this is the process. What you do, you write a letter. And then you tell him exactly what your complaint is. Heaven forbid if you're not articulate, because you get one chance at this. And if you have trouble reading or writing, you're pretty much hooked. That's my experience. So I wrote half a dozen pages, articulated everything. Now the process is that you wait up to 90 days to get a reply. Why so long, I'm thinking. Anyway, in my case, 2 days before the 90 days was up, I get a reply. Now, let me tell you, the reply made me more angry because the paragraph basically said, get lost. That's what it said. Now, on top of that, you would think that I sent them half a dozen sheets of blank paper because they did not address one single thing that I wrote down in all those pages. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They just said pretty much, get lost. Then, on the same sheet of paper, they write another little line, well, if you don't like what the office of the president relayed to you, you can now write to this person. And this person is called the Scotia Bank Ombudsman. So initially I'm thinking, okay, Ombudsman, sounds official, must be independent, has no relations with the bank, a new set of eyes, and maybe they think perhaps more favorably to my situation. Wrong! The Ombudsman is the Scotia Bank in this case. Same office tower, same address virtually. So I have a little tip for the people at the Scotia Bank. When the office of the president said, we're done with this letter, what they should do is maybe walk across the office floor or the next floor down and give it to the lady who's sitting in the ombudsman's office and say, can you deal with this? Because it's bullcrap for them to tell you to write another document and send it to them. So what I learned from all this, there is no consumer protection from the bank. Absolutely zero. if you don't fit the mold of their self-serving system, then your only option is a civil suit. And good luck taking on a large corporation. You would need lots and lots of money, and you will likely not be able to afford it. That was my experience. So let's advocate consumer protection for all Canadians against the Canadian banks, because it's about time. Now, we all know that the airlines had a big problem. Now they have this big monkey on the back called the government that's forcing them to, give restitution to all these customers with real complaints. I'm advocating that we do the same with the bank, in particularly the Scotia Bank, because that's my experience. I'm not saying all banks are tarred with the same brush as the Scotia Bank, but this particular case, I would like to advocate better consumer protection, because right now there isn't any. And I'm going to try and push this. I'm going to send this video to my MP. And I would like to see changes made for all Canadians. We deserve better. So let's see if we can simplify this video into a short list. So here's a summary. So as you know, I'm out $100,000. That's gone. I won't get the money back from the bank. These lowlifes won't admit the wrong, and they likely won't ever pay. But that's just the way it is. This is no longer about me. So here's a question. So when I contact my business manager, how is it possible that when I'm ringing the alarm bells, hello, ding-a-ling, I'm paid $100,000 too much, ring, 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 that she's not sort of picking up on this and thinking about, I'm talking money laundering. She could be thinking about something else regarding the security of the banks. I don't know. But the fact is, this lady, Teresa, never said a word. And in fact, she didn't seem to be overly concerned. Now that tells me, I believe, she also truly, truly thought this was a wire transfer. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. So when this person telephoned my office to inform me that the wire transfer is in our account, and then in real time I go online and I check the account and the money's in there. Now, how is it possible that this person had that information, and where did he get it from? Does this person have an inside contact? Is he an actual rogue employee of that bank? I don't know, but somehow he seemed to have access to accounts that held detailed information. That's the one that I can't figure out. I don't think it's a gee and by golly guess, do you? Of course not. I had an account for 10 years at that bank. And just the one and only time somebody somewhere mailed a check for that bank for a large amount of money in a foreign currency. Now, you would think that an account, a check of that size would immediately raise concerns as to the validity of the check and also the amount of money. But somehow it evaded all processes and security systems in place that nobody decided to tell me. Now, I don't believe that's normal practice for the Scotia Bank. I don't believe that, because every time I deposited checks into the Scotia Bank, they always held the checks until the funds were officially cleared. That's what they always did. So this one anomaly, the only time in 10 years, the only time somebody ever mailed a check to the bank, and I had no facilities in place for the bank to deposit checks on my business behalf. Not at all. So I don't believe that is just another fluke. I really don't. I think something else was involved. Now, my friend who used to be a manager at the Scotia Bank, he himself said that ordinarily that couldn't be done. And he was puzzled himself as to how that could happen. And his suggestion was it can only happen if there's some form of rogue cooperation inside the operation of the branch. That was his opinion, not mine. And I have to agree with him. I don't think it's ordinarily possible too. When I was in discussions with the bank about this so-called exceptional daily transaction report, the branch manager herself said in front of everybody else that she had no freaking idea what this document was that I was talking about. And then in the next breath, she admitted the existence of a document, but I wasn't going to get it. So what else are they lying about, and why would the branch manager already be on a defensive and start lying? What did I do to deserve that? I don't think anything. I think the problem is, once again, something wrong with the branch. The bank was already clear that they didn't want to help me. They didn't want to get the police involved. But I thought the least they could do was give me the evidence that you've got to the people involved in this fraud. You know, they refused to help me. Now, why would they not give me the evidence so that at least on my own behalf I could take it to the police? But they wouldn't do it. And I just don't know why they would not pass on information when there's obviously a crime involved. They refuse to get involved themselves. Now, I don't think, is that standard corporate policy with the Scotia Bank, or is it just that branch? I don't know, but that's exactly what they did. Regarding the deposit of the fraudulent check, now in their booklet, it clearly states when a person deposits that fraudulent check, that person is responsible for that. Well, in this case, 100%, the bank already admitted that they did just that. But yet they refuse to accept any blame or any loss associated with it. Now, they then go on instead of just saying, put your hands up, yes, we have a problem, something is wrong, we're going to look into it, and we'll fix things. No. They went down this rocky path and tried to blame me. They successfully blamed me because I paid. Now, with the threat, they actually threatened on 2 occasions or more that they were going to set the dogs on me via the Scotia Bank lawyers. Now, they're probably sitting in Toronto office, a whole pile of them, just waiting for an action against a guy like myself. But that's what they did. Instead of just admitting the truth, they decide to hide behind their corporate bullying and corporate muscle to not admit anything. And at the end of the day, they get away with it. And without a doubt, it highlights, and I know I've had the experience, it highlights that the Scotia Bank has zero, and I mean zero, protection, consumer protection. They have this 3-step process, which is massively self-serving, created by them, designed by them, for them. There is nothing in there that actually helps the consumer. Nothing. Now, if you don't fit into their square little boxes, then you're out of luck. They force you, if you want to continue it, to use the civil courts. Well, that's bullcrap. It should not come to that at all. Now, the Scotia Bank actually has, they do self-reporting on cases with the Ombudsman. Now, I looked at some of those, and I tell you what, it's shocking, it's terrible. They should be ashamed at how bad the success rate of a successful resolution between the bank and the customer. They should be ashamed because it's really bad. About half get no resolution at all. Guys like me, nothing, right? Instead, they force you down a path that you can't really follow unless you happen to have an excess amount of money. So, we need to talk about consumer protection. Now, a great example of this is the airline companies in Canada have this big monkey on the back called the government. Now, the years and years of abuse that it gave its customers, the government finally got sick of the complaints. They now make the travel companies, the airlines, they have to pay fines. And they are told how much, when and where. Now, I would advocate that we now put the monkey on the back of the Scotia Bank, in particular because that's the one I know. Now, I think eventually all banks should be regulated with better consumer protection.